would like, if I may, to take you on a strange journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California, member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Welcome to the beginning of another week, folks. I hope the weekend was good. And for most of you out there, I'm guessing today is a holiday, so you've got some extra time. Maybe you could spend a little bit of it working on those goals, coming up with some ideas on how to move forward with things you'd like to achieve in 2017. If you'd like to reach out, head on over to the website at therebelbroker.com. From there, you can contact me by clicking the word contact in the menu. You can also visit the store, where if you're looking for a good book on real estate or investing or any other kind of cool items that in some way relate to real estate, you can go over to the store and check those out. All of those are purchases done through Amazon, and they don't increase the cost of the item for you, but they do help support the show. And of course, if you do head on over to the website at therebelbroker.com, do click the button at the tippy top of the page titled Take the Survey to support the show. Use the same email address both times you're asked, answer the handful of questions, and in addition to helping out the show, you'll be putting yourself in a drawing to get a $50 Amazon gift card. We've already handed out $200 to 4 lucky winners. So why not jump in yourself and get your name in the hat for that drawing. And then once we hit February, you might just find yourself $50 richer in Amazon dollars. I'd also like to welcome all the new folks who have discovered the show via YouTube and through the front page exposure of the show up on iTunes. I really appreciate it, and I've been happy to get feedback from some of those folks. One thing I would like to point out is I've kind of come up with a plan now for how things are going to roll out for the Rebel Underground. As video content that's specifically designed for YouTube comes out, so one thing that's coming up is a video on how to analyze a property. We're going to do that jump off point where once you've sort of identified an area where you want to get a feel for the opportunities that are available in those communities, I'm going to do a YouTube video on how to do that. I'm going to walk you through the process. And I'll eventually, I don't know if I'll do it in the same video, but I'll eventually also do a review of a piece of software that I use to analyze properties that's very handy. And it would kind of make sense to segment that off just in case no one really cares about the search part, but rather just the analysis part. But what I wanted to let everyone know is the folks in the Rebel Underground are going to get access to that content at least 2 weeks before the general public. So how it'll work is I will release new content, and then the folks in the Rebel Underground will get it. And then for at least 2 weeks, they'll be the only ones who can view it. So that's one of there's a variety of things I want to start making special about being part of the Rebel Underground. In addition, whenever I do any sort of publication or content release, that type of thing, some of it will be exclusive to the Rebel Underground. And then anything that's going to be posted to YouTube, you'll get it at least 2 weeks early and make everybody wait for a little while. Now, if you'd like to join the Rebel Underground, you can just text the word Rebel Broker to the number 44222. That's the word Rebel Broker, all one word, to the number 44222 and sign up that way. And of course, you can also head on over to therebelbroker.com, and while you're there, a pop-up will show up asking you if you'd like to join the Rebel Underground. So feel free to join that way as well. So now there's 2 ways to join the Rebel Underground. And I look forward to those of you who join. We've seen a lot of folks recently who've jumped in. And of course, I welcome everyone, and hopefully we'll make it worth your time for having jumped in. What we're going to explore today is not what is expected to be the number one segment of the buying community out there, but what is ironing out to pretty much be the number 2 group, and that's baby boomers. Because there are some special things to take into consideration. And at the International Builders Show in Orlando, Florida, last week, the National Association of Home Builders was putting out some information for those who attended about how to support the industry's efforts to cater to that segment of the market. Now, of course, since builders are doing it, it might make sense for you as a investor, whether you're doing flipping or you're renting. If you feel like that's the good marketplace for you to really sort of assert yourself towards, then there are some things you're probably going to want to know in terms of moving forward. Now, here's the good part. While some of these little tidbits of information will absolutely make you more attractive to folks that are baby boomers, implementing these things, by and large, are not going to make you less attractive to millennials. Now, obviously, some of these are going to be choices that you make relating to functionality of certain areas, which we'll get into in a minute. But the reality is the way you implement these things can absolutely not only keep you very competitive with millennials, who are the largest group in general across the country, but then also give you a boost up with folks that fall into this baby boomer category. Now, also, as I always suggest, you're going to want to take into consideration the local reality. If your property is in an area that absolutely does not tend to draw baby boomers, well, then there's no point in going to the extra expense of implementing some of these ideas in your rehab if they will, in fact, represent an extra cost. However, if you're going to be doing a rehab, if you're going to be doing a flip and you're doing a lot of work on the place, let some of these be a guide to you to nudge your decisions one direction or another. If they don't represent an additional cost, why not do them, right? If you're going to redo the lighting anyway, why not do it in a way that's going to be more beneficial for folks that are in that boomer category? If you are going to be remodeling that bathroom, why not toss in a couple of accessibility features if that's not really going to represent a big cost add to you? It's just going to make it more attractive to folks that are in that boomer category without alienating really anyone from that millennial category. So I thought we would jump through this list and maybe even add a little bit of our own insights or at least some gut feelings on what sense some of these make. So let's go ahead and jump in. And now, where did this article come from? It got to us from Realtor.org, but as I mentioned before, it was from the International Home Builders Show. So I'll link to both of those things in the show notes for today's show. So if you'd like to get sort of the short version from Realtor.org, or if you'd prefer to get the long version from the National Association of Home Builders, I'll include a link to that as well. So you can then check it out and get into the more detailed views here. The 55 plus housing market, according to the National Association of Home Builder Market, is expected to keep growing, according to industry experts at a press conference held at the National Association of Home Builders International Builders Show in Orlando. Quote, "We know anecdotally over the past few years that the 55 plus housing market has been growing and is likely to continue to grow for the next decade. And now we have new numbers that back that up." And that's from Paul Emrath of NAHB's Vice President of Survey and Housing Policy Research. Quote, "The return of 55 plus data now included in the American Community Survey will not only show us the size of the entire group of 55 plus households, but also will give us information about individual markets and how they are currently accommodating that growth segment." So as I mentioned, it's important, I think, to identify how this affects your market. You might be able to better figure that out from this report, which obviously I will, as I mentioned, give you a link to. So let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at these. Now, number one on their list is Rethink the Laundry Room. They say after the kids move out, many homeowners spend less time in the laundry room, but that doesn't mean they want to ditch it entirely. As the house becomes less chore-centric, they say that homeowners are more prone to focus on fun. Try carving out a space for crafts or pet care if a huge laundry room feels like a waste of space to buyers. So I don't necessarily disagree with this one. However, being able to accommodate whatever sort of laundry solution is out there, I think, is important. I've seen folks in the baby boomer category that feel very strongly about stacked units, for instance, where the dryer is on top of the washing machine, if the washing machine is a front loader, So it's just, and a lot of reasons is because when it's done drying, they want to have it at a reasonable height. They don't want to have it a bend over height. So there's that kind of beneficial thing, which I've also noticed some folks will get those types of units and stagger them so that even if they're not directly on top of each other. So by keeping that in mind, I think that's a good thing to do. And I also noticed that with boomers, despite the fact this is pointing out that these spaces may not be as useful as a laundry room, I do find that at least right next to the dryer, that folks in the boomer category do tend to like to have a little workspace, whether that could just be some drawers or a cabinet, but a desktop space, perhaps for folding or whatever else. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make this a multi-purpose space. You could absolutely still accomplish the needs of a laundry room, but then also incorporate these other things in terms of making it something for crafts or pet care or whatever. I don't think those two things are mutually exclusive. It may just depend on the appointments that you're putting into those spaces. Now, number 2 on their list, boost the light. Now, this is one that I think you can absolutely do without alienating anybody, because with the way lights can work today and the dimming ability and all these other sorts of things, you can have settings for lights that take everything right up to absolutely fully lit. Every corner has light shed on it, all the way down to something that's a little bit less intense. Now, according to the science behind it, the eye lens or the lens of the eye thickens and lets in less light, and that means a 60-year-old needs 6 times as much light as a 20-year-old. So don't be someone who thinks you need to make the decision. Now, the way they're putting this out is look for inexpensive ways to add light in unexpected places. My suggestion would simply be to provide yourself with enough light to fully light the home if everything is on full, and then make sure that you're building in switches that have a flexibility to them in terms of the intensity of the light. Now, see, that's what I've done in my home. As you know, I'm in the process of putting my home together to be marketed, and I have replaced in most critical areas the light switches with a standard light switch, but next to it is a slider that's recessed back a little bit so that you can set the intensity of the light very easily. So if you want to have every light switch flip on a light to its full potential, great, that's slid all the way up. But if you prefer to, on a regular basis, have it set a little bit more dimly, then that light switch will just switch it to that level. One thing that was a downside in my particular property was there were a couple of rooms that just didn't have sufficient light. Now, one other thing to consider is for the boomer category of client, it also might be good for you to consider inside the cabinet lighting. This is something that I've noticed gets noticed by boomers. They go, oh, wow, you open this cabinet and there's light in it. So that could be in a kitchen cabinet. That could be in any cabinet or closet where when you open it, lights automatically come on. And I've noticed that as an appreciated feature that just makes it a lot easier for folks to navigate around what they're looking for. In fact, interestingly enough, and this isn't something I've incorporated into my build yet, but it might be something I do, I have seen kitchens outfitted with lights that come on in a drawer. So you open a drawer and then lights come on to illuminate what's in that drawer, which is actually pretty awesome. And remember, blend this with the ideas we talked about in previous weeks, where in each big room, like a kitchen or a master bath, or maybe in a really impressive living room. See, one thing my home has that I think makes it desirable is its view. So by having a standout feature in each one of those rooms that's just eye-catching, those tend to be the things the folks will walk away remembering. And we talked about that. Remember, you want to figure out what the impression is going to be when someone walks away from your home for sale. If it's the stinky house or the house with the green shag carpet, that's a negative that the people are walking away with. But you want folks to walk away with those wow features that don't necessarily cost a whole lot to include, but are just rare enough that they stand out when compared to other properties. Okay. Number 3, be subtle about accessibility features. I think this is a good one and is also one where by making the right decisions, you're not alienating folks that are in the younger category that might associate certain things with a much older owner that maybe they aren't as excited about having included in their property. Now, the way they describe this feature is everyone wants to be able to age in place, but few want to think of a time when they'll be physically limited. Thankfully, many features that make a home more navigable and safer for those with mobility issues aren't very obvious, such as even level surfaces that make it easier for those using wheelchairs, canes, or walkers. They also noted that many bathroom product manufacturers are now making grab bars that look more like shelves and towel racks than institutional style safety features. So, and that's it. It's about how you integrate it into the space. If you go with that big silver iron tube that sticks out of the wall and looks like it was stolen from a hospital, yeah, you're screaming mobility issues. But if you go with things that are integrated more into what you're buying, so for instance, you're going to go ahead and do that shower space anyway, make it a attractive, desirable feature that maybe serves more than one purpose. I saw one home where this was done by having the mobility bar, the stability bar, also serve the purpose of being the thing on which the shower wand was attached to. You could raise and lower the thing that held the shower wand on this bar so that you could get different heights for the jets, or you could take it completely off and clean yourself that way. But at the same time, this bar was intended to be a mobility bar. So you could count on holding onto it and pulling it with your full weight without pulling it out of the wall. So again, it's about creative integration of these features. All right, folks, we're at number 3 on our list. We've got a couple of more left. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break, but we'll be back in just a second, so don't go away. Are you ready to jump in and start your search for your first investment property? Maybe you've decided that it's time to own your own home, or maybe you're ready to sell your home and move on to something new. No matter what your goal is, the Rebel Broker can help. That's right, aside from hosting this show, I am also the owner broker of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services right here in Silicon Valley. With over 25 years experience serving Silicon Valley, Morgan Hill, San Martin, and Gilroy, I or one of my great agents can help you achieve your goals in real estate. So if you're ready to look into taking that next step towards achieving your real estate goals, point your browser at www.soldbyrobert.com. That's www.soldbyrobert.com and get in touch. Let me show you how I will earn your business and your respect. Again, that's www.soldbyrobert.com, or you can call me at 408-852-0525. California Bureau of Real Estate ID 00984-909. Welcome back, everyone. We've been running down different design choices or features that would help out with appealing to baby boomers. We know that this is a growing segment of the marketplace. We also know that these folks tend, I've had the segments in my career where I have had different segments of the buying community tend to be a bigger part of those that I served. When I used to live over in Santa Cruz County, I was working cooperatively with my father, who really owned a senior community. So I was backing him up and helping him with a lot of the business he was doing there, and found myself really focusing on folks that were in this senior level of life where they were really looking for a different set of things, where certain things meant a lot more to them in terms of features of a home. And these are all things that definitely play into what we're talking about here. What's interesting, though, is really understanding how much of a micro market this is. For instance, in my father's marketplace, these were folks who were a little bit higher on the activity scale than a lot of other folks in many retirement areas. I'm imagining that this is probably going to be true in we were talking about Phoenix the other day. I'm imagining this would also be true there, where a lot of these folks, they're not going into these retirement homes. That's not an appropriate term. They are not moving into these homes more suited for baby boomers in many cases, looking for a sedentary lifestyle. And I've actually seen an interesting evolution of that over the time that I've been a real estate agent. In fact, having accessibility to a lot of other really cool things to do has also been a theme. So in addition to focusing on the features that your specific property offers in terms of what's in it, I think another way to understand how to adequately market your property or target your property towards folks who are going to get the biggest bang for the buck out of your property, that are probably also going to end up resulting in you getting the biggest return on your investment, is to understand what things in the community where the property is located are going to cater to folks in the boomer community. And I guess what I'm getting at is, a lot of us who are younger, and I refer to myself as younger, but I'm creeping up real fast, that 55 mark, is don't pigeonhole these folks. Don't stereotype the boomer people, right? It's not about shuffleboard. It's not necessarily always about golf. I've had folks in that age group that were really hot about hiking trails, running trails, off-road biking, sailing, flying. That's a really good one. And that's actually one I focus on a lot. A lot of the folks who are at a position in life where they own a plane are either really close to or at this age group. So by understanding what's around you, you can oftentimes find a new marketplace to turn to when you're trying to find someone to be a renter of that property that you've decked out for someone who's likely to be a boomer, or when you're doing that flip and you're looking for a marketing strategy. I've mentioned this before. One of the best things I did when I was marketing, this is going back now to when we had the $1.3 million wall in my area. And what that basically meant was, despite the fact some elements were recovering, and this was 3 or 4 years ago now, there was this wall at about $1.3 million. Once you had a home listed for $1.3 million, it simply was not selling. The only way and this also feeds into my theory of price banding, which I've talked to folks about on the shows in past months and years. This idea that once you get over a certain point, just for whatever reason, the number of buyers dries up. And what's interesting is these price bandings can jump, right? Things can be dead from 1.3 to 1.9 million, but as soon as you hit 2 million, suddenly the folks who have expectations of what they think they should get for $2 million increases, and suddenly you'll see more activity there. Now, obviously, there's going to be less inventory at a price point like that in most places. So those things may just have the perception of going faster because while it's a smaller pool of people doing the buying, there's also a much smaller pool of people doing the selling. But in any event, sorry, I headed into the weeds there a little bit. This was at a time when that was happening for me. I had a home priced at $1.5 million, and I was languishing on a market with a pretty decent handful of other homes that had been on the market forever. So one of my initial ideas was I needed to get creative with this. And I think that the smart move is not to wait to be faced with a problem before you get creative with these types of things. And I think it specifically applies to this example of catering to folks who are baby boomers. In my specific case, I decided to go two-pronged. It was a property that was large enough to accommodate horses if you wanted to add them, but it wasn't a property that had horse features on it already. So it presented a challenge. And looking at the marketplace, while I agreed my property was worth $1.5 million, I was seeing other properties with more space and other types of features that were at the same price point that had been in the market forever. Like in one case, I think almost a year one had been on the market when I first listed it. So I knew I had to appeal to markets that these other folks were not. So for me, that was Flyers. There's a private airport right in San Martin, which is the same city where this property was located, but far enough away so that it wouldn't annoy you having planes coming in and out, but close enough that if you had an airplane, you could put it there for a whole lot cheaper than if you lived in some of these other areas that had private airports. So I found myself going all the way up the peninsula, going to other private airports, particularly in Palo Alto, Los Altos. I got lists of folks who subscribed to piloting magazines that lived in those areas, that type of things, websites that catered to those folks. And I hit that marketing hard. Well, the end result was ultimately the home sold, and it sold to someone who was interested in the fact that there was an airport nearby. So it was, and I actually sold it in record time. I think we actually closed escrow in 90 something days. It was from the day I listed to the day it closed was about 90 something days. And that included some bizarre delays in the middle of that transaction. So it ended up working out really well in that case. But remember, in a lot of cases, it's not just about finding any buyer. In a case like we have today, I think the argument can be made, you simply want more buyers. You want to get as many eyeballs on your property so that you potentially get multiple offers that'll get you above and beyond what your list price is. All right, so that's one of the reasons I'm going through this list is because there's two sides to that equation, right? There's the reach out to the people that will likely want what you have to offer, and then there's if I'm changing the property, if I'm doing a rehab, if I'm going to remodel for the purpose of renting, what features should I give it so that I get rented faster than the other guy renting this home with the same square footage and bedrooms and baths, or that I will sell faster and for what I want compared to the other homes already on the market that are comparative in bedrooms, bathrooms, and square footage. Because that's how you're differentiating yourself, right? When people are shopping for a home, they're typically saying to their real estate agent, well, you know what? I need at least 3 bedrooms. I need at least 1.5 baths. And sometimes they'll say, and I don't want anything under 1,300 square feet or 1,500 square feet. So those are the things that tend to be what differentiate who's going to see your home on the MLS when they're doing a search. Exactly the same search you should be doing, and you should be differentiating yourself based on what your competition is. So one of the things I always suggest when folks are about to do something like this, whether you're an investor or not, if you're a buyer, if you're a seller, if you're an investor, as an investor, if you're looking to flip or you're looking to convert and rent, I always suggest looking at the competition when it comes to this stuff to ascertain what you offer. It's a little bit more difficult if you're planning to buy and rent, because that means you need to try and go look at places that are for rent. And usually that process is a little bit more involved than looking at homes that are for sale. But I still think doing that on some basis is very valuable for folks who are looking to rent. It's important to understand if this house really rents for $2,000 and you go in and you look at it and it's a crap show, but that thing ends up renting, well, that should calibrate you, right? You know that if you go in and you make your place look better than this place that looks like crap, you're going to rent it faster, and you can probably charge a little bit more and get it and be able to get it relatively quickly. And I realize this is kind of in the woods, but this is one of those things that I don't think most renters do that I think is ridiculously valuable. Always be calibrated to what lesser properties are currently renting for. And typically, if you're doing single family residential rentals, that means being calibrated to what an apartment is renting for in your area. So just because you need to know who your potential customers are, and it's absolutely these poor suckers renting an apartment that would like to have a little bit more personal space. All right, sorry. I did go off in the weeds a little bit there. I hope it was helpful. Number 4 on our list. We've hit the first 3. To do a quick recap of the first 3, number 1 was rethink the laundry room. Number 2 was boost the light. Number 3 was be subtle about accessibility features. And on the light thing, man, I find that light in unexpected places dazzles everybody, whether it's task lighting under cabinets in the kitchen or it's lights that come on in the pantry when you open the door. People dig that. So no matter who you're talking to, people are going to love that. Number 4 on our list was point out low maintenance features. Now, this is another good one. And you know what? I actually think this stuff appeals universally right now to the 2 top buying marketplaces, which is our baby boomers and our millennials. I find many millennials, the funniest thing about the conversations I have with millennials right now is the division between deciding if they want a single family residential or a townhome or a condo. And one of the biggest things, while it often comes down to the things we've talked about before in terms of personal space, not sharing walls, having a little bit more elbow room, a lot of it comes down to, I don't want to screw around with the lawn. I don't want to mow the lawn. I don't want to have to paint the house. I don't want to deal with the roof. And then what I end up finding is a lot of these folks specifically then want to find a single family residential community that has an HOA that takes care of all that stuff for you in terms of taking care of the front lawn and doing the gardening and all that kind of stuff. I find that now to be a bigger element in the marketplace than, say, if you were to ask someone 10 years ago. So I don't think this is one of those things that absolutely is going to cater just to the baby boomers. I think this crosses the lines. I think this potentially becomes something that ends up being a much bigger attraction feature across the lines than most other things. Now, one of the first things that comes to mind for these folks in this article when looking for low maintenance home is the size of the lawn. They noted that there's much more to taking care of a home than that. Quote, I want you to think beyond yard maintenance, they told the attendees. They noted that stain-resistant quartz countertops and roofs that don't have nooks where leaves can collect can be important qualities of a listing as well. No one is going to buy or not buy your house because of a roof that doesn't have nooks where leaves can collect, but they may absolutely buy your home regardless of what group they fall into because of a quartz countertop. Number 5 on our list, and this is actually the last item, examine where the stairs lead. Now, this is one that I think is particularly important for folks that are doing rehabs, flips, whatever, or changing a property to make it more suitable for a rental. Steps are not necessarily a deal killer when it comes to folks in the baby boomer community. It is one of those things that they will often filter on, whether or not a property has stairs. But to be super honest, that's a difficult one to filter for, as agents will frequently not fill out things correctly so that you can filter for that in an effective way. So I know whenever I have a client who's a buyer who is looking for something that's only a one story, I will often suggest that they not necessarily do that, simply because the layout may still be conducive to them, particularly if they have extended family, grandchildren, that sort of thing. And here's why. While when you acquire a property as an investment, it may be set up where the master suite is upstairs or other types of things. If you're doing a full remodel, it may be advantageous for you to change that layout so that the master suite is downstairs and you convert that space upstairs to areas that are really more delegated to when folks are visiting, things that wouldn't be part of the day-to-day life. So things that are good examples. Laundry room upstairs, move that thing downstairs. But only if you can also move the master suite downstairs. If you can't get the master suite downstairs, then don't do it. That would be my suggestion. I think that wouldn't make much sense at that point, because so many folks like to have the laundry facilities upstairs where all the bedrooms are. Now, if you have a layout where all the bedrooms are upstairs, again, probably not a layout that lends itself well to this sort of an adaptation. But if you have a situation where really maybe just the master bedroom and one other room is upstairs, it's a more limited floor plan where the upstairs is much smaller than the downstairs. And I see these quite a bit. There were a lot of homes built in the 70s that sort of have this weird setup where sometimes the master suite is up on the second floor by itself. What I typically will suggest folks do is convert that so that and you can even have it with two master suites if you want, where you simply create a master suite downstairs. But normally you need to shift that functionality. But if you can create that upstairs area to become, say, a bunk room for the grandkids or an exercise room, those types of things that they may not be using regularly, or things that they might move out of their regular use over time so that it wouldn't be a primary part of their day, like, say, a workout room is a good example, where at some point they may back away from using it for that purpose, but then it's not a complication to their life because it's on a floor that they now don't need to go to anymore. One other thing, you need to make sure that when you do make these changes, or if you do come with a property where you want to still try, you've got a layout where you can't really change where the bedrooms are, right? So what you need to do is make those stairs as unannoying as possible. So that means landings and railings that are very, very safe. They state here, stairs are the number one reason people go to the emergency room, and not just those over 55. I can attest to that. Stairs are what got me to the emergency room. Now it's October of 2014 when I screwed up my knee, and that wasn't even lots of stairs. That was 3 stairs. So I don't even have a good story to tell. I can't say I fell down a flight of stairs. I fell down 3 stairs and screwed up my knee. But in any event, if you're adding all of these safety features to the stairs, that makes them more feasible. And the other thing that I suggest folks do, if you're just in an area that's dominated by seniors and you want to come up with solutions to problems you believe people will bring up if they're in that baby boomer community, and you want to make their second floor more accessible or not as imposing in terms of having to deal with those stairs, analyze the layout of the home, figure out what it would cost to either put in a personal elevator or one of those chairs that go up the stairs so that so it's not a walk up the stairs, it's being lifted up the stairs. Find out what those solutions are and have those as part of your tool chest to use for folks to say, this is a solution to the problem in case you love the home, but you're concerned about the stairs. But I'd only go to that much trouble if I knew that I was in a marketplace where that really is a very strong portion of the buying community. And it'd probably be something I'd focus on a flip. I don't think I'd focus as much on a rental property if it's a rental property that I can't make more boomer friendly in some other way. All right, folks. I hope that was helpful. As always, I'm interested in making sure that the time you trade to spend with me is more than repaid in terms of the value of the content that you get in return. If you'd like to get in contact with me, of course, the best way to do that is through the website at therebelbroker.com. So feel free to visit there. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to y'all next time.